So one of the biggest questions I get is, why should I spend $129 US on an Apple TV when I can buy a $40 Roku or a $20 Amazon Fire Stick that will do the exact same thing? And I thought about this a lot, and they have a good point. Like, at the end of the day, it's taking you to your app to watch TV and it's getting the job done. But the problem is you're sacrificing a lot. You know, like these $40 Rokus and $20 Amazon Fire Sticks, they're great, but you're sacrificing privacy. Like, every time you use a Roku, and it says straight up on their website, like, this is not hidden, all the stuff you do on your TV, all the apps you go into, all the shows you watch is recorded and sent to advertisers. Your information is not private. The same thing holds true if you use a Google Chromecast. Sure, you can opt out of it, but most people don't realize you can or don't bother to do so. And the second reason why I appreciate the Apple TV over these other devices is for sheer speed. Like, don't get me wrong, smart TV apps are getting better on TVs. They're not as slow as they used to be, but they're still nowhere as quick and snappy as what these new Apple TVs can do. So if you value privacy and you want the best TV watching experience possible, that's why you should buy an Apple TV over every other type of device. Now, I'm not gonna compare this to last year's 2021 model. It makes zero sense. Like, if you just bought that, you're in a good place. Like, don't even look at this. It's not an upgrade for you. This is meant for individuals out there who bought an Apple TV 4K first gen and earlier. In fact, I'm gonna be making a lot of comparisons to the 4th gen first gen or 4K first gen so that you guys can get an idea if this upgrade is worthy or not. Now, right off the bat, you can tell there's a huge size difference between these two. Like, this is tiny compared to the 1st gen 4K model. In fact, this is a 3.6 inch base compared to 3.9, and it's obviously a bit thinner as well. In fact, if you put both of these in your hand, this one is a little bit lighter, just making it easier to hold. They did change the logo on top. Instead of Apple TV, it's just an Apple logo, which I personally think looks a lot cleaner. On the back, it's a very similar story in terms of ports. You have your power connector, you have HDMI, and you have your Ethernet jack. Now, the weird thing is, with the 2022 model, if you want an Ethernet jack, you have to spend more money for the 128 gigabyte version in order to get that. So if you buy the 64 gigabyte model, you are not getting Ethernet, which is weird, right? In the box, very similar to the previous model, you get the Apple TV, you get the power cord, and you get paperwork. There's no HDMI cable, and they removed the actual cable to charge your remote, okay? In the original Apple TV 4K first gen, you used to get a cable to charge it, but now there's nothing in the box. Speaking of the remote, you get the updated version of it. Like, I'm just not a fan of the first gen remote. I never have been. Like, it feels nice and light, but it's just not a premium device. It feels very fragile, right? Plus, the touching experience, you have to really get used to. Now, granted, if you don't like it, you can just go out and pay, I think it's like $59 to get this remote instead. But you are getting the new remote if you buy the latest version of the Apple TV 4K. Now, the beauty of this remote is it now comes with USB Type-C. I love this remote. It feels great. It does have this cold, chiseled feel to it. The buttons are nice and clicky. It's just very easy and familiar to use. Now, I should also mention there is one more difference between the base model and the more expensive 128 gigabyte version, is that the base model does not come with Thread support, whereas the more expensive one does. So if you plan on kitting your home with smart home apps or smart home devices, and they do support Thread, you want to pay more for the expensive version because it's going to play nicer and you're just going to be able to do more things with your Apple TV. Now, the major differences between the 1st gen 4K and 3rd gen is you get HDMI 2.1 compared to HDMI 2.0. This supports up to 120 frames per second because of that 2.1 interface, whereas on this guy, you can only go up to 60 frames per second. This is very important if you plan on gaming on it and there's games that support it, or if you're watching content like sports and you want the best motion smoothing possible. Both have Dolby Atmos and 7.1.4 channel surround. This one supports ARC and eARC, and I believe this one does not. You're also talking about Wi-Fi 6, which is way better than Wi-Fi 5 on the previous 1st gen, but obviously you have to have a router that supports Wi-Fi 6 as well. Now, in terms of video formats, they are pretty identical. They both support SDR video with AVC or HEVC. You have Dolby Vision, you have HDR10, you have H.264, you have MP4. The only difference is that the new Apple 4 TVK gets the addition of HDR10 Plus, and it also supports HLG. Now, quite frankly, it's not a big upgrade, but it does support more TVs now, especially TVs from Samsung. Now, setting up an Apple TV is easier than any other smart app I've ever used. You basically just plug it in, You bring your phone close to it, the phone detects it, you hit continue, you follow the instructions. After you log in with your Apple ID, if you've used an Apple TV 4K before, it's gonna start downloading all the apps that you use. You don't have to manually go into the App Store and start downloading them all over again. It just makes everything so much easier. Once that's set up, you can start manipulating the icons you see on the screen. This is something you don't get with a lot of other smart TV devices. I can create folders, I can put apps in folders, I can move each app around on the screen and place them where I want. Now, if you own AirPods or AirPods Max, you have better integration with the Apple TV. You can easily connect it to use it, which is clutch, especially if you have like a newborn or you live in a small apartment and you want to keep the noise down. Being able to just use your headphones is awesome. Now, you do get some of the same features you'd get on the iPhone. So for example, if you take your AirPods Max off or even your AirPods Pro, whatever you're watching is going to pause. And as soon as you put them back on, the movie or song is going to start playing again. Now, this also works with other headphones, but a little bit trickier to set up. You got to go into the Bluetooth settings and pair them, and you don't get the same features of pause and play like you would with an Apple product. Now here's the weird thing, performance on the first gen Apple 4K TV is still really good. Like, it's not as good as the second gen or the newer one here, which has the A15, but this A10X is still holding up. In fact, it's still faster than a lot of the newer third-party vendor items that have just come onto the market. That's the crazy thing, okay? But you do notice it if you have them side by side. You know, like I'm loading up applications a little bit faster with the A15. Zipping through the menus and getting back to things is faster with the new A15. Playing games in Apple Arcade are obviously going to load faster and play faster with the new A15. And you also get that 120 FPS support, assuming the game supports it. Now, since we're on the topic of Apple Arcade, it does work with Xbox or PlayStation controllers. Mostly I use Xbox controllers, but I love the fact that I can play on my iPhone or iPad and then resume on the Apple TV. Since it's all connected to your account, it knows where you left off and you can resume on another Apple device. But if you're watching a lot of movies, there's more customization there. I really enjoy the Watch Now tab. Not only does it tell me what to watch, it works across a lot of the applications that I have installed, not just Apple TVs. And look, it's not gonna work with Netflix because they opted out of it, but if you use any other sort of service, it's gonna tell you where exactly you left off, and it's gonna tell you what to watch based on recommendations from other Apple editors. Now, the calibration tools are fantastic, right? You take your iPhone, you put it on the screen 2 centimeters away, and you can color correct what you're watching. Now, granted, this is not color correcting the profile on the TV. All it's doing is creating its own profile on the Apple TV device and applying it to the bad profile that the TV is using. This is clutch, it's so easy to do, and a lot of people who buy TVs these days don't have that option, right? They have to go into the settings, fiddle with the colors to get the perfect look, and a lot of the times they're probably making it worse. Newer TVs, the more expensive ones, do come with calibration tools, but you usually have to pay a lot more money for them. So just being able to do it with your iPhone is super duper handy. AirPlay's there, so obviously you can AirPlay your computer, your iPad, your iPhone, whenever you want. You can still use Apple Fitness with the TV if you're really into using that specific application. Multi-user support has been fantastic. So let's say I have my family, my wife, my 2 kids, they can all log into their own profiles and I won't get their Watch Now recommendations. Also, if there's some apps that I don't use, I don't want to see it on my profile, but it might show up in their profile. So just being able to simply switch between them just allows everything to be a little bit more clean. So here's the bottom line. If all you care about is just having smart apps, then you can go out and buy a $40 Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. Just know that you're not going to get the same speedy experience that these devices offer, and you are giving up some of your privacy. Now, if you do currently own an Apple 4K TV second gen, the one that came out last year, this is not an upgrade for you. You can skip this. And if you own a first gen Apple 4K TV, it really depends on your setup. Like if you're still using Wi-Fi 5 and your TV doesn't support all the codecs in HDR and it doesn't support HDMI 2.1, I'd probably wait until you upgrade your TV. But if you have a brand new TV with all the HDR codecs and you're planning on upgrading to Wi-Fi 6 at some point, then I'd definitely pick up the new version of the Apple 4K TV, because not only are you going to get a better visual experience, but it's just going to feel a lot snappier all around. I hope that answers all of your questions. If you have any more, let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.